if it's not.
Not yet,
Still
Steffon.
nothing. Let me
You're
see.
gonna get the visa yet. Hold on 1 second. So in the
The people
meantime,
online are
so
hearing
the,
it,
the
but
online
yes,
audience can hear, right? Thank
they
you
are
so much for
hearing.
clarifying. You said
Right.
sounds
Mhm.
better. They can hear him.
Mhm.
What a audience nice. That's how we love Life Class family, you know.
Online.
Online is hearing, but we in studio for some reason, Steffon, it's not translating. Okay, so go ahead now.
Yes.
Yay! Okay.
Hey. Thank you. All right. So for me, marriage is a union instigated or started by two people, but very much supported by a community of people and also several institutions. And that union, part of that union is a relationship, but that is not the only part of a marriage or a part of that union. But I'll leave it there for now.
Mhm. So you're touching on the, let's say, the scaffolding around that relationship, that's community. Yeah.
Yes, so that's what distinguishes a marriage from another type of intimate relationship. It is propped up and supported by more than just the two people that enter into that union. It is very much institutionalized, very much established, very much supported by the law, by families, by culture, and all of these things. So I think those things are the distinguishing elements. And I think I've answered what marriage is and what it isn't in that
In that
explanation there.
response. So Steffon, because your audio clear up nicely now, I'm going to come back to you immediately with the other piece of the convo, which is what are some of the alternatives to monogamy that are out there? Because I'm hearing a lot of terms about poly this and poly that, Steffon. So I know for your doctoral research, you touched on some of those things. So walk us through some of those, alternates arrangements that people can choose.
Well, so when we talk about polyamory, when you break down the word, it literally means many love. And in a polyamorous union or polyamorous relationship, you have different types. You have the V, right, which is one person linked to two people who are not necessarily linked to each other. You have the triad where all three people are connected, the quad, all four people, network where everyone is connected. So there are a host of other arrangements, I say equally valid, that is beyond marriage that someone can choose from. But ultimately, with whether we're talking about marriage or polyamorous relationships, and we haven't even got to polygamous relationships, it's really just about agreement and understanding and everyone being aware of the situation.
Mm-hmm. So when I hear about the V now, Dr. Dunbar, the V and the triad and such the like, there are so many so many ways in which people are negotiating what works for them, right? And I know that from perhaps many of our audience members, that might not be our choice. However, I think it's important to at least know what exists, Doc.
It's good to know what exists, right? But what came to my mind while Doc was speaking was, when you have authentically made stuff that are made, so some things are authentic Jamaican, and when you go some places like China, you say the same thing, and them say made in Jamaica, but then they make a Jamaica, they make a China. So there are other alternatives that the manufacturer of marriage never came up with, right? So the monogamous one man, one woman relationship is what the manufacturer came up with.
Intended.
That's what he intended. That's what he designed. I'm actually writing a book now called Marriage by Design. So there's marriage by design, there's marriage by definition, and there's marriage by choice.
That coming strong. All right, Norman, what are your thoughts on the various arrangements which can be made?
They will always have a wall to fight against the traditional thinking people.
Yeah.
Those of us who grew up with marriage is one man, one woman, we will not look at the other ones and even consider them for the most part. But as you say, they do exist. So they do merit at least speaking about. And whether it's modern times, nowadays, back then, whatever you want to call it, the success of the marriage is based on the persons involved.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you start going against something that is maybe shunned publicly, then that's going to have an effect on the marriage between the two people. So are we talking about how it affects people or whether it should be done or not? There are varying arguments that we can come up with. But we find people talking about it, it's like, it's not for me, it's not my thing.
Right.
If I'm going to have other people, why better get married? I understand all those views, but comes down to the individuals involved. If this works for them and they are willing to deal with whatever repercussions, good, bad, or indifferent, then that's on them. It will never work with somebody who is traditional. So, make sure you're aiming properly. You don't go with somebody who is not of your mind frame and vice versa. So both exist. I understand that they don't seem even remotely correct to many people. One man, one woman. This whole heap of choices, where not have other people for where not to get married for. So it is traditional versus open-minded, modern. But at the end of the day, it still comes down to the two people involved, or in some cases, the three people involved, whatever. But I understand why people have a problem calling that marriage, because we grew up saying marriage is this locked-in union, exclusive union, me and this person. The thought of bringing somebody else in is ludicrous to some people, but it works for some. So, we can have a conversation about it, but it's going to come down to how are you letting the views of others affect you, and you being the persons involved.
Yeah.
So.
And so I love the conversation so far. I know that for many of us, right, we're in the diaspora, the Jamaican, the African diaspora. And so many of us are, well, let me not say Africa, the Caribbean diaspora. Many of us are grounded in, what we have named so far, exclusivity, monogamy, one man, one woman. From what I'm seeing in the streets, I feel as though with time, there's a significant shift and it's happening very fast. And the reason I think there is value to even discussing it is because even in what I do for a living, which is to support people, through relational, mental, emotional challenges, some of the spin-offs in society, to my mind, are coming from poorly negotiated arrangements such as these in some instances. So sometimes you have people that say, but I really want that option. I want the throuple. So I want the three of us to be together. One person might initially say, I'm gonna like it, but okay, if you want it, we'll go along. You know what I mean? And then twos now, we're seeing people, unfortunately, in the news because of instances of intimate partner violence, etc., etc. Connections are there.
Right.
Yes,
And so I think to the extent that we can start to meet people where they are, even with our, let's say, our gospel, right? Our good message, I think there could be value, because some people are, as you said, are going to shun or they're going to feel shunned by traditional viewpoints. And so they will not come when things are breaking down, and then it may end up spilling over into public health concerns and criminal concerns and that type of thing. So that's just to, that right there. One of the things I want to do before we move on, Denton said the side chick lifestyle. One of the things I want to do is to pull up the poll results before we even go any further, right? To see what the audience members were saying. While it's coming up, Michael says there are deliberate reasons for how marriage is defined by the states in the Western Hemisphere. Let us also keep in mind that there are tax ramifications for such unions. Different cultures, especially in the East, treat marriage quite literally. Differently. Sorry, thanks for that, Doc. Right? Okay. So let's look at what the folks are saying. We asked them, what's your current mood coming to the conversation? And we see 32% of you say you're feeling happy. More than half of you say okay. A couple of folks are feeling kind of on the, the low side, which is quite fine. And we hope that by the end of class, we can have a contribution to an improved mood. Then we're asking, what is your story? What is your relationship status? We have 35% of the people in Doc, they are married. 42% are coming in to find out how to get married and stay married, right? 4% are divorced. 14% are in a committed space. And we have 5% in a situationship. So that's our audience. That's class for this evening. Do you think societal changes have impacted the institution? And most people said yes. Yeah. And then, is that the final one? I think we have one more. The final one is, have you ever considered other relationship types? And here is the proof of the pudding now. 23% of class said yes, and 77% of folks said no. So we're coming to check on you after class to see if the views, how the views have changed. So thank you so much for that. Now we're talking about how marriage has shifted. And Dr. Dunbar, we hear so often about, the stats about divorce rates climbing. What do you think has, in your mind, how would you define the major shift in marriage from, let's say, our grandparents' era, 50, 70 years ago to now?
I think back then when they were getting married, I think they went in with a closed mind, one way in, no way out.
One way in, no way out.
Right. So no backdoor on marriage. Right. So we're not going in this to have a divorce. Right. The teaching in church was not as it is today. We're having more conversations in church. We're more open. For instance, when I came on the scene talking about sex, it was a taboo, right? And so persons are understanding better. They are learning about marriage. They just did married back then, as in join together, right? They just did that and know that we're all stay together whether or not. So even though they were not divorcing because it was not believed to be a godly thing to do, still is not, right? So they stayed together irrespective of whatever challenge or even trauma that happened in the relationship. In more modern times, divorce has become more accessible too. Wasn't as accessible then. It has become more accessible too for persons. I like to say in this era that divorce can be had by hire purchase.
Oh God. Soundbites for days after Dunbar.
Yeah, that it can be had by hire purchase. So persons are more able to, tap into to ascertain a divorce, to get a divorce, like a Burger King, you drive up at one window, you put in the payment and you pick up the papers at the other end. That's not how it was once upon a time. So the mindset going in is totally different, which is why premarital counseling for me is so important to help persons to understand where you are going, the expectations and all of those things going into the marriage so that you know how to put your mindset going in to the marriage, right? And understanding the kind of vehicle you're driving in this marriage, you understand, and who's steering. That kind of a thing, because those are the things that is going to help you to keep the health of the marriage and to keep the marriage itself together. If you don't know where you're going, somebody said any road will take you there. It's important to educate people before they get married, not while they are getting married or while they're in the marriage because you're already in it, but prior to, so you can make an informed decision. Back then, they did it and they stayed in it. Now, we are doing it and we are deciding whether or not what we're going to put up with and whether or not we're going to stay in it. But for the most part, like you said, monogamous relationships are a good thing. I love that I heard only 4% of divorce. I didn't want it to hear 2 still, but I love that it was really down there.
So I'm going to jump over to Steffon, right? Steffon, to your mind, what are some of the major shifts which have taken place, within this institution of marriage over the last 50, 70 years?
So just piggybacking off what Dr. Dunbar said, this
So Steffon, just one more quick second, because we've lost you again.
Oh boy.
And yes, and to answer your question, Danielle, yes, this will be on YouTube, on the JN Group's live, on the JN Group's YouTube page in another couple of days. But you can also watch it live on the JN Group's Facebook page right at this minute as well. All right, Steffon, I think you're back with us now.
Good now?
Yes.
All right.
Now that's clear.
Good. So just piggybacking off what Dr. Dunbar said, we are in an age where everything is fast. So it's like fast food marriage, fast food divorce. And people are moving away from doing things for the sake of duty or doing things for the sake of community or making other people happy. We are in an age where people are seeking self-sufficiency, self-fulfillment, self-reliance, being happy for themselves, by themselves. So you realize that people are no longer getting into something and sticking to it for the sake of disappointing the family or disappointing the spouse and all of those things. People are moving away. There are concepts known as being single together, where you're with the person, but you don't necessarily even live with the person. You just know that there are some things you share. You agree to have this union, but beyond that, there isn't anything else. And the notion of being divorced and co-parenting and taking care of the children, but having separate lives. All of these things are a lot more mainstream. And I think something else that is very, very important is that because we've started marketing weddings more than marriage, people are getting married for the purpose of the wedding and not necessarily understanding what marriage is about. So again, it's the fast food marriage and it's also the fast food divorce as well, because we're also glorifying divorce in this very same way, right? It's promoted, it's marketed, it's advertised, those things. So I think those are some of the shifts that have happened over the past 50 to 70 years.
Boy, Dr. Campbell, the way how the head's nodding in the audience, I feel like you put some powerful things.
Right.
That coming from Estoy. There are several reasons why it's not always fair or helpful to compare marriages of the past to marriages today. One main one is the different economic realities. In the past, marriages were often based on economic considerations, right, Noran?
Right.
Such as securing alliances
Alliances.
between families or ensuring the continuation of wealth.
Right.
Today, economic considerations are still important, but they are often secondary to personal issues and decisions.
Exactly. And
100%, 100% correct.
Yes.
That persons nowadays are more okay with going with how they feel.
Mhm.
And as Steffon said, at the risk of disappointing whoever, I am not happy in this anymore, so I'm gone.
I'm out.
Do I want to work on it? Excuse me. Do I want to work on it? Maybe.
Kind of ish, yeah.
Or if I work and I don't see it coming, so there's more self-centered. And the word self-centered has a negative connotation most of the time, but there's also the other side, which is self-centered.
Mhm.
I am about what makes me happy. So if I'm not happy, I can't make anybody else happy. So why stick in something that I'm not going to be happy in?
Mhm.
And as we said, as Dr. Dunbar said earlier, you fall in love with the idea
of marriage, which is
of
what
marriage.
Dr. Campbell was
Yeah.
alluding to as well.
You love love.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
You don't necessarily love the person.
Do you love marriage, or do you know what marriage is enough to love it? Because how can you love something that you know next to nothing about? And the truth is, it is healthy individuals who are supposed to enter into marriage. This is individuals who have first loved themselves.
Yes.
Cannot
Yes.
love somebody
Yes,
more than you love yourself.
absolutely.
If you don't first love you, that's why I said a 50% single must not get married.
What is that? What that name?
You're not 100% single yet. You have not done you yet. You have not explored you yet. You don't know what
What is that you
understand? So,
Exactly.
so you are not yet ready for marriage, because if you take up somebody who is also 50% married, that's a hospital. That's not a marriage. That's two patients. That's two half of a person looking for a coach. That marriage must fail. So you must first know yourself, understand yourself, know what you want before you try to take up something. You must be an asset in a marriage, not a liability. So therefore, that's you come to the table with something, or you are the very table.
So Dr. Dunbar, I was going to come back to you, because your definition. No, please do not apologize. Sorry today. So somebody says speak with 4 exclamation points. Dr. Dunbar, earlier you said something about mature.
Yes.
The joining of two mature people. And I was like, but this is a very intentional way to frame marriage.
Yes, because look here now. I have married persons in different parts of the world, right? There are states in America now where I have to give an affidavit of support for persons who want to get married. I went up to marry my daughter, and she had to provide an affidavit of support to say that she was counseled. In Jamaica, you just need 2 birth certificates to say that you are not blood related and you can get married. And I'm saying these are the very reasons why we can promote the divorce rates, like Dr. Steffon say, how we commercialize the divorce rates. You understand? Because we put nothing in place to ensure that the marriages are going. Persons who enter into the marriage stay together. It's mature people must get married. It's not because you're 18 or you're 23. You must be mature, and age does not always speak to maturity.
No, it doesn't. No, it does not. No, it does not.
So Noran, this concept of loving love, I saw Brian Cough in the comments, right? Talking about this idea of marriage versus the reality. This concept of loving love, but not really being, I guess, educated, as you like to say, Doc, in the work that it takes.
You may not have the emotional intelligence. And I don't think about intelligence. I think I'm saying you're dumb. But there's a level of maturity that you can understand what feels good versus what is good for me, which is separate things. So you love the idea of love. You love to see people happy, and you want to feel that happy feeling. You want to replicate what you've seen in your parents, your friends next door, the people on social media.
Yes,
I'm not going to knock somebody for that. Everybody wants to feel good, but seeing somebody and saying, yeah, I think this can work. There's a problem in that, because what you're now doing is you are hoping for the best. and you are probably even ignoring some things that may register and say, hey, this is probably not for you. We can be a couple. You don't have to get married. But because marriage has been shown as this is what grown people do. If you're not married yet, you're not a big man. So people will also get married for guilt.
You see what we don't understand?
The issue of roles too and societal
Yeah.
expectations.
Look here now, and all right, I saw somebody write in the chat, somebody need to talk about the origin of marriage. That's why I spoke to the manufacturer of marriage in the beginning. You understand? Because if it is that you're just going to base your marriage on feelings are fluctuating emotion, it cannot hold a marriage together. It must be that you know and understand what it is, because that was God's original intent when he designed marriage. You understand? We have an opportunity to design our marriage how we want it after we have gotten married or whatever. You understand? But I'm saying there's an original intent and design that we have not played into. And so people are now just marrying because they feel like. You understand? And it's just for feeling. And Dr. Steffon spoke about it, the marketing, the wedding more than the marriage. And it's two different things.
Two vastly different things. Somebody in the comments, Noran said, Alec Jackson said, love is a verb. You have to do it every day. Crystal Gale says, love is not enough. And I think people are stopped in their tracks by that.
It's
like,
not.
You,
it's not.
I not? Like, why are you knocking me?
Yeah,
that's the all Steffon head and nod in saying no, right? Dr. Dunbar, Noran is saying
love can carry you only so far.
It's not.
If love is the only plank from the construction, if that plank breaks, what's the foundation? Like is not strong enough.
exactly.
And there's nothing wrong with like. I'm not trying to minimalize like, but it's when things aren't going well. That's when the love comes in and helps to nail that board or patch that hole. Because I could love you right now, but if I'm very angry with you, am I going to say I'm done?
It's very interesting. What he says, and that should bring us back to the understanding of where love originated and the degree and the different kinds of love. What you may be feeling for me may be erotic love. What you may be feeling for me may be romantic love. What you may be feeling for me may be filial love, which is friendship. What you may be feeling, you understand? And we need all of that, including the agape universal love, to be able to hold a marriage together. Because, look here, let me sing one song one time about Peter now old man again. Romantic love not old man again. And not old nobody. It needs more than that. You understand? That amount of cement not good enough.
Look here.
You just need to get to the real
Right now, I'm
place.
gonna put that on a t-shirt.
Right there, so.
Again.
Right there, so.
And so, Steffon, I hear you nodding and quite a bit. Do you want to come in here with a thought or an observation?
The notion of happiness or being with someone because they make you happy, this very dopamine linked way we approach relationships and social media use, this quick fix. And nobody's talking about joy. Joy is a deeper sense, a deeper sense of satisfaction than the fleeting happiness. This is your spouse, your partner, your school, your job, your family. Nothing is going to make you happy every day. Joy is what lasts when happiness is fleeting. And again, I think we need to blame, the Disney movies and all of those things where Prince Charming saves the person and then they live happily ever. As if the moment you found that one, there is no sadness, there is no issues after that. Again, so it's the marketing, and the counseling is supposed to be that intervention to stop people in the tracks and say, hold on, we understand the facade and we understand what you've been told, but this is to snap you back to reality. There's something that you should aim for that is higher than mere happiness or higher than the day-to-day satisfaction. Because, and Noran said it, something might feel good, but it's not. It's not the best thing. I say the best. What you think is the best thing for you is not necessarily the best for you all the time. And if it is that you always move based on your feelings, sometimes you end up losing out on something or someone that could have actually helped you to become a better person, build you up, build up your family, help you get on the right path, which was one of the things I had to learn through my own marriage. Not because I've done things a certain way all my life means that it is the best way, right? And those are the things that people should understand and not necessarily be afraid of. The one time the person disagreed, you say, you know what, I can't do this anymore. This person don't like me, they hate me, then whatever, file for divorce, without trying to understand that perhaps this person is just trying for you to become the best version of yourself.
So yes,
I was going to say, we always you talk about joy and happiness. If you were to take a poll, an honest poll with many married people around you, ask if they're happy, a lot of them might say no. But we also need to remember this. Some people are okay with content.
that is true.
Some people don't need grinning ear to ear happiness. So everybody's interpretation of happiness can vary.
Yeah.
But there's some people who are quite okay with, at least I'm not alone.
Mhm.
I had a friend who said once, I'd rather be in a bad relationship
Not to be
and unhappy than alone and unhappy.
See, when I talk about single, 50% single
50%
people,
single.
right? You understand? You have not found solace in yourself. You have not found content with yourself. You are
You're
not
holding on to
happy with
this.
yourself. You have not found that joy with being in yourself. And I'm saying, if you are so single and you cannot be with yourself, you don't like being with yourself, why should somebody want to be with you? You understand?
very good
Dr.
point.
Steffon said something that was also important about the feeling.
Mhm.
You know, I know all of us, we run on feeling like America run on Dunkin'
tell you.
Donuts. But we just need to understand that feelings are like fluctuating emotions. They go up and down. They're like faulty bridges, man. If I wake up this morning, and it's feeling, my husband don't even get minty. You understand? If I wake up tomorrow morning and the sun is bright, he might get bacon, egg, and toast. So we cannot base it on feelings. You understand? If you're married, you understand what is supposed to happen, and then you work towards that. But there's a way to ensure that your marriage has joy in it, because joy speaks to hope of things changing. Just because something is going bad today don't mean that we need to end the relationship and all of that,
Exactly.
because nothing in life is permanent except change.
That's it.
Change is the only
So what
constant.
I'm hearing so far, because I love how the chat is lighting up, right? People even commenting on other people's comments, which is a sign of success in life class, right? But what I'm hearing though, doctors and Nora, right? Because two doc we have, is that the blueprint obviously is changing. No, not the blueprint. The way marriage is being configured has changed significantly. However, there are some ideals as it relates to the blueprint. So I heard all of you collectively kind of name the fact that, listen, one time gone, people just did it
Beauty.
out of beauty, out of, pressure from one avenue or the other. I will soon talk about the church piece and I'm coming right on your avenue, right? People just did it. And then now we hear people on almost like the other extreme saying, if it don't make me feel good, I ain't doing that. I mean, I do it for more than 6 months and feel it out. Where would you say is the healthy middle? Because we want to be a part in life class today of kind of, let's say, reconfiguring, adding our voices to the reconfiguring of not only marriage, but healthy and purposeful marriage. Because anybody can marry. Once you're 18, yeah.
That's what Jamaica says.
But we want to be a part of the conversation to reconfigure the blueprint for a healthy marriage. And I want us to close out this first segment with your thoughts on what that healthy blueprint looks like.
Okay.
Norman, I look for me very intently. Let me tell Norman.
Measure twice, hurt once. It means take the time to recognize the person. I think when people look at a relationship going into a marriage or a relationship in general, I think there are three points. There's what I'll see, what I want to see, and what is actually there. And those columns don't always balance out. So do the work on yourself and recognize what can I live with? What am I willing to live with? What am I not going to put up with at all? What do I want? Not just today, but going down. Measure that against the other person. And if your answers seem like they're close enough, then maybe you can try step 2. But know the animal you're with. You cannot
to do
if as my father used to call them street Arab, the guys who like to go out all the time, every night you go out, call them street Arab. If you're a house mouse, don't marry a street Arab.
No.
Or don't marry the street Arab thinking about, I thought that after a while he'd want to stay home with his wife. Did they give you that impression early?
Yeah, it can be miraculous trying to change.
So that's the problem when you see what you want to see versus what is actually there. So I say, measure twice, cut once. Do the work on yourself first. Compare notes with the person who did their work, and then you can go and have a conversation.
The blueprint is nice.
Yes.
That is point number maybe 1, right?
Yes.
Dr. Dunbar,
and I like it. I like what he said, because we have to understand marriage is a merger, it's just a tender merger. You understand? And so you have to know what it necessitates for that merger to work. So when you're going in, before you even think about going, like you said, know what you want. How are you going to know when you have found it when you don't know what it is? So know what you want. And then again, knowing the person. Find out if you're not even their ideals, because ideals are just that. Are your goals aligning? Are you going after the same thing? Because it's a pair of scissors is cutting in one direction. And that's what the two of you are. You are powerful as individuals, different blades. When you come together, you are even more powerful. So you have to know if the two of you are going to be cutting in the same direction as a couple. So you have to know what you want. You have to know if the person that you are seeking to align yourself with wants in the same thing that you want. You don't have to be 100% compatible, you know. I am as spicy as curry chicken. My husband is as bland as boiled chicken. But we are working towards a common goal that we decided upon. You need commitment to that thing that you're entering into. Yeah, commitment is important for marriage. It's not just love all together.
No.
What you are committed to, we committed, and we remain committed. We are committed to each other. We are committed to the children that were brought into this world. Thank God all of them married and gone about them business. So we're doing us now. You understand? So know what you want, and know if the person that you're seeking to align yourself with is on the same path that you are going on.
Dr. Dunbar, what I think I hear you saying is that we have to commit to something that's bigger than just
Of
the two
yes.
of us and bigger than just how I feel at any given month, year, or
Yes.
season in the marriage.
Yes.
Well,
Because
we need to think
we
that it's
think-
bigger than
we
us in
figure
the
this-
first place.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I saw a comment in the chat from, I think it was Sasha, who said, you meet the man at the party and then expect him to stay home after the marriage. Just say good luck with that.
Amen. So we want to change them, and us women, girls, you can agree with me. We love to change the man, them, you know.
Listen, it's like we get one divine download.
Oh yes.
We think we get a divine download.
As to how to change them.
Fix and
Yes, do that.
And please understand, as men,
Mhm,
some of us, a lot of us,
mhm.
you bait the hook to sink the fish.
Ah, come on.
So I might come check you once in a blue moon.
Exactly.
It's the same thing as staying home every time
No.
when I want to go home.
Oh,
So
like what she said.
take you will credit.
Exactly.
Tomorrow and Saturday.
Yeah.
So on the Tuesday, you're not going to see me. Go vex.
I look here.
Look, man, look here.
Look here. As simple as that, and I look here. Understand? But don't expect that to change when I get you. I never make up my mind for it.
Dr. Campbell, what say you regarding the blueprints? Like, what do you want to throw into the blueprint concoction for this evening?
It might step on some toes, but know what you have to offer. I mean, a lot of people know what they want. Social media is riddled with lists of people saying
Oh
they
my
want
God.
a six-figure whatever, and this and this, and they want a woman that look like this and a man that look like that. But what do you have to offer? You know, love is about giving. For God so loved that he gave. What do you bring to the table? What can you offer to somebody? Don't sidestep the issue. Don't skirt around the issue. You're getting everything from this person. What are you giving to the person? How can you edify someone else's life beyond your look or beyond your bank book? What can you give to the person? You know, the emotional support. Are you fixed in that area? Are you firm in that area? What can you give? And a lot of times people are uncomfortable, you know, because of their own insecurities, to think about the fact that they probably don't really have a lot to offer to a relationship, much less to a marriage. And so they have on the things that the person should give to them. And if the person, even when the person still gives everything, you know, and there's the analogy of the two glasses, and one person is a full glass and another empty glass. And when that full glass falls into that empty glass, it leaves the other person empty. So there must be a balance. Right.
Yes.
And that is a significant part of the blueprint. For God so loved that he gave. What about love? If you claim that you love, can you give? Can you offer to the person? When you talk about giving of yourself and having that exchange of love, are you prepared to give? Or what are you prepared to give? And then we can have a conversation. And is the person in a position to receive? Right. And that's where compromise comes in and all of that.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
then, Ryan said life class is lifing, right?
Come on, man.
I
said,
see,
you must
like
be
life
honest.
class team, I see so many comments which we could just
Yeah.
capture and share
course.
as like life class nuggets. Like the commenters are doing the most tonight, right? If we can scroll up a little bit, please. Because
So, Steffon, something that I think was so interesting.
yeah, go ahead.
Don't realize that you're not necessarily bringing a certain thing to the table. You know what? That's okay. If you don't measure up, or if a person doesn't measure up to a particular standard, that's okay. Just walk away. That's not for you. But we browbeat each other, we browbeat ourselves, and then we try to the parts together to try and become that. So you're not looking towards somebody. You're looking towards what that person wants. You haven't even started to realize, am I that?
Am I that?
Can I sustain that?
Right.
Should I want to sustain that?
Exactly.
So if you
have to
if
be
it's
fun.
not working, it's okay.
Hey.
Take away yourself.
Course.
Remove yourself. I know it's hard, especially when you've invested so much time.
Feelings start.
But you know what? Every investment is a risk. So if you're gonna try, but recognize this. Not time to pull away and say, you know what? I don't think I'm going to give you what you want, and we're gonna end up in this particular place. I don't want to end up in the trash. So you know what? Let's just not do
And
this.
then, you know, because you don't want to end up investing and then have to walk away because that's hard. That is why I need to do the work before. Don't rush into marriage, man. Too many persons are rushing into marriage. It's not a get to know the person. Treat it, for those of you who have studied, treat your approach to the marriage like you treat your papers that you're writing. Use the observation and the interview and everything that you need to do to ensure. And I know you can think you're here enough or whatever, but when we are doing our researches for our papers, we make sure so we get qualitative information, we get right information and factual information. Take your time. Do not rush. You know, too many persons are rushing because them shelf life are run out. Come to them and clock watchers and them shelf life running out. Come on, stop it. I'm marrying seniors too, but them take the time to think about it. Their marriage will last.
So Denton says, this session is so therapeutic. I'm learning and adding to my knowledge. And this is why life class came. And that's why we love to come to this space, right? I want to amplify the fact that Dr. Carla Dunbar is not just talking the things them, but she's actually putting in the work. You've created a space called Gym, also not more.
Okay.
So for those of you who are listening, you may want to just zoom in right here. You've created a framework, right? A product called the Gym, GYM. And that's a space where you actually teach people how to do this thing called married, healthy and purposeful marriages. I'm going to give a prize. I'm going to give a prize away. So, like, I don't know what to say now because the people already.
That's the question. That's all.
So, I think we have to give it to Deb. I think Deb was the first person. Because how could we not give it to them? So Deb, you have won for yourself the first giveaway, right, for the Life Class audience, which is an Amazon gift card from the JN Circle family. So Deb, they're going to take your info to reach out to you so that you can get a little spending to be great in the Amazon streets, right? We have another question coming up. So you may want to stay on, and I'm not going to give anything else away about that one because the way I want to trigger happy, right? So we're going to come back to that. So we're going to segue the conversation with juicy and nice, right? Somebody mentioned the marketing of marriage. And I think we have done, it was Steffon, we have done a gross disservice, I think, especially to this modern generation and how we've marketed marriage. Because for many people, the $15,000 dress and the 200-person wedding, jobs being released, and nothing is wrong with none of these things.
No, nothing is wrong.
Nice, you understand? But we have represented that almost as 70% of the journey. And then we have hashtag relationship goals. And we have all these ways in which we represent what a successful marriage looks like, when really it's not deep. It really could just be a picture. Somebody sent me a screenshot recently of of a couple that they know is going through significant challenges. And when you see the sweet, flowery posts them in a man, completely belies any real, you understand? And I'm not judging anybody, any human or any couple for having challenges, because that's part of what marriage is. But it's the way in which there is almost a deception. Like to name honestly that marriage takes work, or that we're struggling right now almost feels like it's to admit failure. And I want to talk a little bit about what are some of the ways, what are some of the myths, specific myths that we have propagated over the years about marriage, which can harm people who want to come in and harm their relationships down the road.
Yeah.
So I'm going to jump to Dr. Campbell. What do you think, Steffon, in terms of like maybe 2 or 3 of the myths? We want to list them and then just chop them up tonight.
One of the myths is that marriage is a magic wand. It's going to fix all of the problems. So you had a lot of problems before in the relationship, but you feel like once I'm married, once we get married, all of these problems are going to disappear. All of the red flags are going to be dyed green. This person is going to change their ways, you know. All of the things that he used to do before, he's not going to do anymore the moment we get married. All of the things that, you know, she used to go out every single night. The moment she gets married, she's going to settle down and stay inside and take care of the home. Whatever the expectations that you have, you automatically feel like the marriage, or should I say the wedding, is going to solve all of these things, right? The jewelry is going to solve all of these things. I think that's one of the biggest myths. The second myth is that marriage means that you have to sacrifice your individuality. No, it is marriage does not mean that you have to sacrifice who you are, that you have to stop growing. And even when I talk about giving to the other person, it does not mean that you need to cease your journey of self-development and understanding the things that you need for yourself to edify your own self and your own spirit. So I think those two are 2 of the biggest myths that I see still being promulgated in this day and age.
I like those 2. Dr. Dunbar.
And
Perhaps you have about 10, but give me 2.
Okay, yeah, just 2. Just like that marriage is conflict free, or that conflict in marriage is wrong. Right? Because we generally, when we hear the word conflict, has a negative connotation. So we try to avoid it, not understanding that you actually grow through this. Right? So that's one. And what would be the second one? It got loose out of my head, but yes. So that it's conflict free is one, or that 2, that if it is that you are married and things are not going accordingly, right? That you must keep in Christendom. This is in Christendom now. You keep it to yourself. You understand? Because this is what happened in the church. And I'm saying it because I've been a pastor for going 23 years now. And that's one of the most distasteful things that I found, that there are so many abuse and stuff going on. But if you're doing it, you're not Christian, because marriage is a Christian institution. And if it is that something is happening that is not supposed to happen, you're not Christian enough. That is why this is happening. And that's something that I think we have portrayed as Christians, that we're not supposed to talk about this, or it's not supposed to happen because you're not praying enough, or you're not fasting enough, or something like that. So I think that's 2.
You're not saved enough.
You're not saved enough.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then there's a shame and a stigma that comes.
Yeah.
And we know that bad things grow.
And so a lot of
shame.
Christians suffer in their marriage because of this, because we as pastors, we as a church have not treated with some of these things. Yeah.
And then I
Go home and pray about it.
Yeah. The issue is made even more constricting when certain faiths believe that divorce is just a no, period. And then there is no out, but then there are no solutions, or very few solutions being offered. So then people are like, well, have to stay married, and I'm not changing. The issues are not being fixed. So this is it. And it's sad for me to even think about that, because then it's like, where do you go? Right?
Sit down and just crumble.
Yeah.
For me, one of the myths is that marriage will never fix a relationship. That's cracked or broken. If you and her are not working out, proposing is not going to fix it.
Exactly.
It's going to prolong it. So that's 1. And 2, marriage, getting married does not validate whether you are a good person or not.
Oh my gosh.
So there are some women who marriage is the be all end all, because that shows that they are worthy and they're a woman. And that is, I believe, that is societal guilt that is pushed onto people. For men, you're a 30-year-old man. When I was 30, I was married, 4 kids. So you're wasting time because you're not looking for a wife. So those are 2 myths I think are very strong, but they're very popular myths because they permeate to so many people. And Dr. Dunbar, you're coming from Christendom. The problem is, how do you talk to somebody who is not Christian. How do you advise somebody who you telling them about what the creator meant is in one ear out the other? How do you speak to that person?
Because I only speak to them because I can speak from just a pure place of marriage, what it is and what it is not, how you're supposed to go about it in very practical ways, without even including the Bible. I can talk about it like that because marriage is a lived experience, right? Whether or not you go to the Bible. I mean, the Bible is our blueprint and we use it as a guidebook, right? And I will not, run my standards where that is concerned, but because it's also a daily life that I have lived and that other people are living. So it's two people who are committing themselves to each other to work on their marriage, to ensure that their marriage stays healthy, understanding that there are pitfalls, there are conflicts, there are challenges, but that together you can work it through because it's a life that you have chosen. So we can speak about it without me bringing a chapter and a verse into it because it's a lived experience.
So pretty much you're ambidextrous.
Yes.
We have the word and we have like reality.
Of course.
Well, another piece of the marketing, which I think is problematic now, Doc, is this whole issue is almost like we frame marriage within financial well-being. So especially because of how we twin the marriage and the wedding, I feel like a lot of people might look on and say, yeah, me love her, but me not really at the pocket not so up there yet. So we go all off until such time.
Here, I know a couple that all off for 48 years.
Say it again?
When they came to me, they were 82 and 88. And I asked the question of the lady because I want to know why she sit down with him so long. And she said,
when she meet him, when she's 70?
They say 40 odd years, they live together, have children. And then I asked the gentleman, why it takes so long for marriage? Him say, he may have the money, he may work, and him said it all, they need to have the house because these are some of the things that they think that they needed to have. Their children who came to the wedding were over 50 and them kind of age there because it's big people them. But they thought that they needed the money. That's about a wedding, not a marriage. I think Dr. Steffon keeps alluding to it. You understand? A marriage is different from a wedding. A wedding is the fluff, man.
I want to take a realistic approach to what you just said. The world tells us as men, well, you have to make sure so you have it. And it's not just the wedding. It is the marriage itself because
You must be able to support
it will always cause a problem at some point in
Yes,
time.
it does.
When you start getting a little attitude because this couldn't get paid because something, we are told that as men, if you are not sorting out that, you're not a man. And we have women telling us that as well. So there's that societal guilt that gets put on a man, which is why he might say, you know what, I'd love to get married. You never really know, but you know what, you wait until I at least can say, okay, wedding sort out. First month's mortgage sort out, then we're good.
And that is true. And I agree with you that that societal guilt is there. But the truth about it, as it is, as we know it, it is, the marriage can happen. The maintenance of the marriage is where we're going, right? Where that's why I say it's mature people. Mature people will understand that they can't eat love. You understand? They will understand that love don't pay the mortgage. Because when mature, you understand, right? So you know that you need to have something. You don't just marry because you can and because you're of the age. You understand? You understand the responsibilities that comes with the marriage. So you are preparing yourself for those responsibilities. So yes, you jolly well need a job.
But we can get shamed for that weight, that portion. If you're with a woman for a certain amount of time, if 5 years pass as dating and you don't want to marry, suddenly you get a what are we?
Yes, I hear that's true. That's right.
That's not true. It's
I heard that.
a Jamaican thing, but it's a 5 year mark.
It's not.
I think I'm not thinking,
It's a 5 year mark.
So
what are we?
yes,
Where is this going?
yes, there is that because you have to understand a lot of women, most women, as you said, as we heard earlier, the understanding that they have is, yeah, you want to get married. Most women want to get married. You understand, unless you're one of those, millennial persons who are young people who are persons who you have everything that you think you want. And in my opinion, that's also a lie because I've met some older persons who spend their whole life getting their career, everything, and them say, then Dr. Dunbar, me can't find a man. So now me have to find a man for them. Right? But
for that service dog.
yeah. You understand?
Big and clear,
But they might have just end up with a little love and joy from the uncat boy because then after a PhD, where you find a man who qualify. You understand? Yeah, settling because you care for you have your two poodle, your house or your car. But you're not a man, eh? Yes, I know you have to settle for the uncat boy who can give you good loving, but then you have to mind him. Anyway.
He's a big
Mm.
love and joy from the uncat. We'll come into that now.
Yeah, but so yeah. So we believe that, women believe that, and so yeah, them have a little time where them look at them and they say, so what are you? So you know, get married and they're miserable. And they come to call and they say, but we are going good at everything, but yeah, but when you don't talk to them and say, you know, long, may I wait. You understand? So that is there. But then if there's a conversation about what can happen, what should happen, the responsibilities that are supposed to be involved when two people get married and get together, roles have changed, as you have rightly said earlier on.
Mhm.
So no longer are we just nurturers. Of course, we were not created to be providers like that, but we have been stretched, and God has He has built us with the capacity, to a certain extent, to be able to take on some of these roles. So roles are changing, and we are no longer in the home filing our fingernail. But I can also tell you, a lot of women who come for counseling wish that they could stay home and file their fingernails. You understand? But no, that we understand the reality. Cost of living is high, the economics is high, and so both of us are working. We must just have an understanding. We must talk about the understanding. What are the expectations? What am I expecting you to do? How can we partner together? Because a lot of us are higher income earners. As females, is another problem for next season, right? Yeah, a lot of us are higher income earners and higher educated, or men are marginalized a lot, right? And so we understand where it go. And by the way, I just say this, but I think some women forget certain power. We don't think we handle it very well. We are very emotional. But anyway, our emotion can handle power, the truth. We have to understand who we are who we are. You understand? And so because of all of those dynamics that exist there, we can have challenges in marriage if you're a date a woman for such a long time and you know broach no subject about marriage because she want marriage. She might not say it, oh, me can't do that all by myself, but secretly, she really want married. You understand? But she have to understand where you're coming from. So I think an honest conversation can just make it right. You just understand that, okay, I'm not done say yet for the marriage, you know, because I think say X, Y, and Z. And make she say,
And if you're afraid to have an honest conversation, that's kind of a bad thing about the relationship. In the first
exactly.
place.
So talk about it and then come to an understanding as to how it will work. I think that's what we need to do because the rules have changed.
So, Steffon, Noran touched on the point of the expectations of men. So, I want to ask you to weigh in on that too. This whole thing about, you know, you have to have the money first before certain things. Is it oversold? Do you think some men use it as an excuse? What do you think?
It's an excuse. Some men use it as an excuse, but it is also very, very valid because even how the marriage is supposed to start, the engagement, there's the pressure. You can't just propose with any little ring,
So,
you know? No, if you get a little string and wrap it around your the woman finger, that can work, you know.
Rastra.
Some women are very romantic like that, you know, but when she go to her friend them and she flash her finger and them and say, what that? So again,
String.
how a marriage is, you know, again, remember I said it's instigated or initiated by two people, but the community around, that pressure from the community to say, but in the live nowhere, I want to put all of these things, put the real and perceived, whether the man has been told that explicitly or not. These are things that men oversee or overhear. These are things they see online, and so very few men are going to say, all right, I am going to disregard all of those things and still propose to the woman, still enter into this union, even though I don't have my finances together. However, you know, research would tell you that married couples at the end of their life have a greater net worth, they are more financially stable. On the other hand, finances is one of the biggest predictors of divorce in our day and age. Financial infidelity, financial insecurity, different spending habits, and all of those things. So we have to talk about finances and how men and women see finances even before they get to the proposal, right? And the proposing. And that's why dating and going out and these things are very, very important because you have a very good idea of the spending habits and the attitudes and the relationship with money even before your relationship with the person. And these are, but because, you know, we don't, even as individuals, we don't necessarily, there are very few spaces where we are able to understand our own relationship with money. And so when we enter into a marriage, something as serious as marriage, we enter into the marriage with all of these financial insecurities, poor spending habits. Nobody never taught us about debt management and all of those things. And these things weigh heavily. Multiply
Yes.
that by 2 when it comes to the man who is expected to have all of these things together, right? And in addition to having all of it together for himself, he now has to have it all together for his wife and his family. And as Dr. Dunbar said, add that to the fact that we don't even talk about it, right?
Mhm.
Because if you talk about it, it's implied that you're failing. So the man keep it to himself, and until he explodes and takes it out on his spouse, on his children, or God forbid himself, right? So these are very, very real conversations that we are having in this space right now.
So there are two things I want to touch on before we pull up some very strong questions in our Q&A box. We have to leave time for these, right? One of the things I want to talk about is the church. And because God is the originator, the manufacturer of marriage, do you think, panelists, that there are ways in which the church has not served people well as it relates to either the pre, the during, or the dissolution part of the marriage? And because your name Bishop, I'm coming right down your alley, ma'am.
Certainly. I have been saying that, like I said, I served the church as a pastor for over 20 odd years, and it's woefully inadequate. First of all, pastors back then, not all of them were trained to help persons to navigate towards marriage, like premarital counseling and stuff, and they felt threatened. And even now, there are pastors who still feel threatened and will not send members of their congregation to somebody like myself who is trained to deal with it. They prefer to battle them way through it, giving them the bare minimum, and then they get married. That marriage is going to end up there. So yes, the church has done a lot, and I have said it in very public spaces that we have to take responsibility. I call myself the church now. We have to take responsibility for the damages we have done, for the information we have not given, for the persons who are suffering in some of the relationships that we have forced them into, because they see two people and they were talking, and because they were talking, they need to get married. Or somebody fall into what we call sexual sin, and because they fall into sexual sin and pregnancy come about, marry. And we hear it already, pitting our woman again. So that never did for them. So we have to take responsibility. And even now, well, now we are doing much better. We are doing much better, thank God. But even now, persons who are trapped in relationship that they really never wanted to go into, but were pressured into by the church. So we do have to take responsibility for a lot of the marriages and a lot of the damaged relationships and even a lot of the divorces. Right now, if you look at the stats, the church divorce rate in Christendom is very, very high. You understand? And that tells you, just come about the other day.
Yeah.
When a termite is eating a door, you don't see what the termite is eating until they touch the door. So it has been happening over the years where we have not thought about the things that is supposed to keep the marriage together. We have thought about faith and grace and salvation. We have not had Bible studies on marriage and sexuality and all of those things. I've been saying that we need to include those things into the Bible study curriculum because this is life. And if it is in the Bible, you cannot be ashamed to teach what God was not ashamed to create.
She said what she said real quick.
She said what she
I'm going to
said.
jump to Dr. Steffon or drop some biblical references into the conversation. Sir, what are your thoughts on that question in terms of what you think the church could, especially as we are part of the convo for reconfiguring the blueprint? What are some of the things you think could be helpful in moving forward?
I mean, the conversation about sex and the openness about sex is something that the church cannot and should not shy away from. And yes, before even growing up, sex was not something that was taught in or spoken or even thought about in the context of the church. It's as if you were just supposed to know that it's bad until you get married and automatically, ooh, everything is perfect and God is going to show you all of the things that you should do. You don't, it's spoken about it in corners and in sections of the church, but openly, I've seen very few people who've expressed it just like Dr. Dunbar and say openly that the church has failed. you know, when we talk about things like Abraham and Sarah and Hagar, or when we talk about, you know, the famous David and Solomon and Samson and Song of Songs or the Song of Solomon and the beautiful expression of all of all of those things. Those are things we very rarely hear about in a religious space, and it has to happen. It has to happen in order for the church to remain relevant within the context of marriage, not just wedding, but within the context of marriage. And I think a lot of people only get married in the church, and then when they have a child, they bring back the child to dedicate, and you don't see them until Easter and New Year's, and that's because many people don't see the relevance of the church and its teachings the moment they step out of the doors of those structures.
Agreed. Noran, what say you?
Regarding the church, I think the same pride that they speak about not having, I think they suffer from it to some degree, because I think they operate on a, let it not be said I wasn't pushing God when talking to young people. So it feels like a conveyor belt sometimes. It's like, you're going to get married? Trust God, move on. Next couple, trust God. What they didn't consider are the persons who they're pushing down the line able to represent what you are teaching. Do they even understand it? Do they know how to then hear it and apply it to their marriage en masse? So it seems more like a just trust God, move on. Just trust God, move on. Because that is their, it is God, it is religion. That's how we grew up in the church. So you have some church members who it's all fire and brimstone. If you think about anything that the Bible doesn't say, you must think about. So that same pride of, you know, we're pushing religion and trusting God. I agree with that. But have you asked yourself if everybody who you are splashing with that word able to interpret, enact, and push through with what you're saying?
See, the thing is, you know, the Bible said my people suffer because of lack of knowledge. Through the prophet Isaiah, it is really lack of knowledge. And I think a lot of us in the church, in our 4 times, not very, very long time, but in our 4 times, we're not very knowledgeable as to how to teach about some of these things. Because what we were also taught was just the basics, faith, grace, salvation. So nobody taught about family life, because the Bible is not just a blueprint for marriage, it's a blueprint for all of our lives. He says that he gives us everything that we need for life and godliness. So everything about how to sustain a relationship, everything about how to procure a relationship, everything about how to keep your family together, everything about life in general is in the scriptures. But I believe some of our pastors before never understood how to teach that, because they themselves were not taught. And then in coming to understand that it can be taught, like when I just come on the scene talking about sex, I was invited into some churches, or a lot of churches, or a whole church, to talk about sex, but then they wanted to caution me in some spaces how I spoke about it. And some of them weren't sure, but when they heard me now and they heard the scriptural justification, as in my book, Sex Scripture, a lot of people say it's very erotic, it's intentionally erotic, but I can substantiate everything that I say from the lick to whatever with a scripture, because it is there. You understand? Like I said again, we can't be ashamed to talk about something that God was not ashamed to create. And we can teach it from the Bible, because that's what I do. My entire gym courses, I can substantiate them, where they're coming from, with scripture, how you keep it together. So yeah, it's because we never know. A lot of them never knew. Honestly, I found that out, that they didn't know. And we took an Augustinian approach to even sex. It's a necessary evil. Let's enjoy it, but don't talk about it.
If enjoyment is even a part of the equation.
Because we don't even know how to do that. So I had to teach them that, because they don't even, you get them enjoyment because it will elicit some sort of response, but enjoy it, but not like it too much because I never G's out.
Flesh.
Yeah.
There was a comment in the chat from, I think it was, can you scroll up a little bit for me, please? Just scroll slowly. Let me tell. Roxanne said that the church also needs to stop pressuring people to get on the schedule of marriage as if God is not the author of time.
That is true.
Think, yeah.
That's what I spoke to earlier, that they did that. They forced persons into marriage, not even sitting with the person to find out if this is what you really want. But because the church don't want the reproach on the church, You understand? And so falling to sexual sin and all that and getting pregnant and so is considered to be a reproach upon the church. It is. But there's a right and a wrong way to go about things. And I think we need to sit down and talk to person. I'm saying no, I'm seeing the church is moving in a different direction where they're now teaching. I have been to almost every denomination across the island and outside because they are now facilitating it and recognizing that if you can't teach it and God has raised up a Carla Dunbar to do it, then why not Carla make sure do it?
Yeah.
You understand? So I am happy
platform.
for that happening now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The next thing I want to touch on before we jump into our burning Q&A box is we've been talking about this kind of sort of from like a theoretical approach and in some ways theological, more faster than the business now. So I want to know to talk personally. What are maybe the top 3 things that you wished you had known before you said I do? Because all of us know I've said I do, right? And that's why I want to, the seats over there, so right? So who must start with now? Nora, like him, I meditate. Let me give him 2 more minutes. Let me jump to Dr. Campbell and Dr. Dunbar. Like she wants shy about Panda 1 year, but we soon come there, right? Dr. Campbell, what say you?
What I wish I knew before I got married.
Well, you said I do. Yeah.
Before I said I do.
So the first part where everybody are pausing. I mean, I understand what God.
It is. I had to understand that not because I would say that the work starts the same day that we say I do, right? I mean, you have the honeymoon, but there is no honeymoon phase or honeymoon stage, right? And again, these are the way that the wedding or marriage is spoken about is as if there's this window where everything is hairy-fairy and everything is perfect, right? But if someone could have told me like the day this thing happens, there are some real life conversations that you need to have. And mind you, my wife and I, we've had real conversations before the wedding and before marriage, and we understood each other's love languages and flaws and all of those things. But right after the wedding, we had to get even more real into that. All right, we're not leaving, we're going to figure these things out. So we need to start sitting and mapping things out from the very day, right? And that's something that I wish I would have spent some time to consider before. But our situation is a little bit different. It was not the traditional or the conventional way, because right before we got married, I actually lost my mother. So it was grieving. I was balancing grief and the happiest day of my life at the same time, right? But that's one thing I would say for anybody who is thinking about getting married, understand that this commitment starts the very moment you decide very moment you say your vows and you say, I do. I said it's an institution, very much like school or very much like university. Once you start the university, you know that the work starts. It doesn't, and I think something that people need to understand, work doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing or a painful or an unhappy thing. And a lot of times when we tell people marriage takes work, people automatically think that it's a bad thing. And it probably is because not for we not like with job, but work is a good thing. Right? Work is a good thing, and the type of work that takes place in a marriage has its rewards. So don't shy away from it, right? I'd say lean into it, give your all, and you will see the rewards and you will see the benefits. It's not always about happiness. It's not always about comfort, but there is that ultimate goal that you're working towards, as Naran said in the beginning. And I guarantee you, once you put your head down and you commit to this thing from the very first day, you will see those rewards.
Thank you very much for that. Dr. Dunbar.
So Mr. Dunbar and I lived together for 13 years prior to getting married. And then we did 3 months of premarital counseling. So pretty much we got good grounded counseling, right? But if I were to say 2 things, as a matter of fact, I just looked at the paper when I drove in outside, when my assistant drove me in, and I thought about the question. The first thing that came to me was, I wish I knew that marriage honors God, honest with God. I wish I knew that. I've always heard the scripture, marriage is honorable and the bed is undefiled. And I thought about it in relation to myself and my husband, not understanding that marriage is a gift that God has given us to take care of. We benefit from it, but it really honors him, right? I never knew that, even though I was a Christian, well, 1 year after I got married, I never knew that. So, and that, knowing that now has helped me a lot more in being the wife that I need to be to my husband, right? So that God will be glorified and honored as a result of our union. So that, if I knew that, then I would have more stars for my crown. And also, if I'd known that marriage is so much different from living together. We lived together for 13 years, but the dynamics changed when we got married. Ooh. Honestly.
So it's
two different things. You understand? So if I knew that, because we just start that you're just formalizing it by signing 2 pieces of paper. Because a lot of people think, oh, we're just formalizing it by signing 2. We know everything already. I would just formalize it.
13 years and a baby years.
And a baby years.
It's
two different, it's a different thing. You understand? There are different expectations, and all of those things, because your wife now, your husband now. So if I knew those 2 things, I think initially some things would have been different. We're enjoying a great quality of life right now, myself and my husband. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking just the other day, what would I left him for right now? Yeah, because there were days when I wished I was single, and as we had them time in our marriage, and there were days I would have left him with some other things, and I'm thinking about it now, because through many dangers, trials, and snares we have come. I think, what am I doing now for me left him? I can't think of nothing right now. So, you understand? But marriage is it's awesome. It's a wonderful gift. Just like if you're single, your singleness is a gift from God that you're supposed to preserve. You understand? And don't allow anybody to rush into marriage. Marriage is a great, wonderful thing. You understand? But your singleness is also a great and wonderful thing. And that's why you should enjoy it. And if God brings you, so you should be single, sexy, satisfied while you wait, in inverted commas, right? Because if you wait and it not happen and God come, so you go. You understand? So yeah, it's a good thing. It's a great thing. And if God brings you to it, you can enjoy it. But like Doctor said, it's a lot of work involved. Not work like the job that you're not enjoying, job satisfaction. But one hand cannot clap, right? And it is a two of you working together towards that particular goal. The longevity, that sustainability of a family together, that is going to make that marriage work. And it's going to take a lot. It's going to take commitment from you. It's going to take that love, all of them types of love. Yes, and it's going to take your proactiveness and intentionality and purposefulness and all of those things. Ensure that it works. And at the end of the day, like this, so we have 5 stages of relationship and we circle it over and over again. My daughter asked me the other day in the gym, Mommy, what kept you and Daddy together? And I said, well, I do things that he likes now. Him like food. So I make sure the food is always there. And whatever else, you understand? And it's true. So I said to her, so which stage are you guys at now? And I said, we're at wholehearted love at this stage. And we have been there for a while. Mm-hmm. So I give God thanks. And anybody's marriage can get there. God didn't just give me a gift and not give everybody else, because it's not partial.
But the work, that's the fun.
Work, I put the work in. Yeah. We both put the work in.
You can't have the recipe without the work.
No, you have to have the recipe and the method. You understand? Because a lot of people have the recipe, but are not willing to apply the method. You need the method, man. You have to do the mixing, the taking, the grinding, the baking. Right.
I want to ask you a question about the tick between living together for 13 years and then getting married, and it wasn't the identical experience. Do you think it was the expectations of listener wife, my name now? Do you think that was a big part of why it never translated?
Not well, that too, as well as I was doing my thing, and we having the fights and all of these things because I've experienced domestic violence and all of that. But when we got married, there were some expectations that changed, like, a wife and name now. Like, I am now owned by this man. That is true. We not lose our individuality, but that is what it is. He is yours. Him can't gazette me. Me can't gazette him. We are owned by each other, and there are certain things that are expected of you to do. Plus, there's a norm. you know, that your wife know you can't do certain things, you can't certain way. You understand that because we were young and coming up, we were adhering to those things, you know, not understanding certain things. But yes, the dynamics really did change, you know, because it's no longer we are shack up kind of so. It's you are now Mrs. Dunbar. Yeah, is my claim to fame. And I don't remember what my name was before.
Your father's alive?
No. But that's another thing for me. I don't believe in double barrel names. So I believe when you get married, you take on the man. You understand? Whatever your father used to do, that man not supposed to come do it, with the exception of, you know, having sexual relations, of course. Yeah. So it's totally different. Yeah.
I'm coming over to you. Very comfy.
What I wish I knew,
Before you said I do.
before I said I do, I wish I knew that it is no other person's responsibility to make you happy. It's your responsibility. If that person adds to your happiness, great. But you cannot put your happiness on another person's existence. So saying things like, I'm only happy when I'm with you. That sounds nice and poetic, but it is killing yourself. Because the fact that you were born by yourself, you die by yourself.
Yeah.
So you can't put anybody else with the responsibility of making you happy. And I wish I was smart enough to know that being married won't fix it. You know, I had this thing that, oh, you know, married people go through these things. Inaction sometimes is worse than action. Sometimes not doing anything, seeing it and leaving it to fester, thinking that, oh, but you know, I love the person. No, because that thing can drop off just as quickly. So I wish I had more faith in myself as an individual, my own tree, my own roots, my own column, because that would have helped. Because maybe it would have made me look at things in more of a, okay, I'm this, you're this. I think it's okay if I'm not that. Or, you know what, I think I should be that based on it would just be more of a conversation with myself, coming from a place of, I don't want to lose a person. That's dangerous. It should come from a place of, okay, well, this is me. Does this match? But unfortunately, some of those lessons you don't learn until after. You know, there's a retrospect. It's a very popular tourist destination because we are always revisited quite a lot. So those are the things I wish I knew.
Powerful. And as usual, there is a whole conversation taking place in the chat doc at this present moment about the double barrel name, right? For like season 7. Yes. But I love it, right? I love the camaraderie, and I love all the positive affirmation. So many people are saying this is so good. Dr. Dunbar, they want to know how they can hear more from you because you're a breath of fresh air. The spirit things are going, right? We're going to do another giveaway. So for those of you who want to win one of the Amazon gift cards from JN Life Class, now is your opportunity. So get your texting fingers ready. So the question is, what is the name of Bishop Dr. Carla Dunbar's book? Lord Jesus, look here. One of the here, Charm.
That's one of the, oh yeah.
Charm, do better, Charm. Yeah. But we're very happy to give them away. Congratulations to Charm P. You have one for yourself. Copy of that particular book called Sexscription by the sex reverend herself, Dr. Dunn, right? Some people say sextification. Look here, Anna. So we're going to segue now into a couple of the questions in our Q&A box, right? Some of them are really hard to unpack in like the next 32 minutes, but we're going to do our best. I'm going to pick the one from this person here, Dr. Dunbar, and fellow panelists. Should a spouse leave a marriage if they're unhappy and their spouse isn't willing to do the work with them to fix the marriage? I'm going to throw to virtual expert Steffon first, and then we're going to come down the line in studio. So, Steffon, what say you?
Well, I mean, that's an interesting question because we said unhappy and the spouse isn't willing to do the work. So that implies that the unhappiness is linked to something that the spouse isn't willing to do. And, you know, if that, and, you know, sometimes we say unhappy and it really means something else. So if it's dissatisfaction, and it's not fleeting, it's lingering 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and this person is being emotionally abusive, and this person is fully entrenched in their attitudes, knowing fully well that the things that they are doing is causing you harm, and they're not willing to change. I don't think that is a healthy relationship. I don't think that is something that is linked to a particular mood. And and my belief is, in a case like that, again, as I'm saying, it's going on for a certain amount of time. I don't think it's healthy to remain in that situation. It's not like as if the person has decided to enter into counseling or therapy and deciding and understanding that there are some issues that they need to work through, trauma and all of those things. But if they are unwilling to do the work and it is causing you harm, emotional, physical, all of those things, and it is leading to your dissatisfaction and that deep feeling of unhappiness, depression, what you name it, in my estimation, I don't think, I think the problems and the cost outweighs the benefit in a situation like that. And staying in it just to save face, or just to keep up appearances, I don't think that's the best. That's the best approach that should be taken.
Thank you for that, Steffon. I see a couple of those scenarios, Doc, in cases that come before me or that I hear of, where one party is blocked from getting neutral third-party support, like a therapist, right? Somebody who's trained to help them through. And sometimes I am trained to give support, and sometimes I say, where do we go from here? Because it's a tight spot to be in, especially depending on, as Steffon kind of touched on, the severity of the ways in which you're impacted by this situation. It could be traumatizing. It could be abusive in multiple ways. It could be even physical harm. Some people are give them partner STIs like every quarter. You know what I mean? There could be so many things the audience allow, but it's true. There could be so many other aspects. And while I am not one to be quick to say, yeah, man, out of that, delete, backspace, it leaves the question hanging sometimes for decades if we're not careful. Do I small up myself to accommodate this? What do I do? I think maybe sometimes if there is a person of influence, Steffon, who you feel like could get through to them to say, look here, counseling and for mad people, first of all.
Yes.
Many of us are still there.
Exactly.
Yes.
Right. Exactly. That's what we don't understand, because we have not been taught the value of these things in our society, the value of therapy, the value of therapeutic intervention and counseling. I have zero tolerance for abuse. I suffered abuse. I have zero tolerance for it. I say to couples, ensure that you have tried the avenues of getting therapy first. One of the things I say to wives too, don't try to take your husbands to counseling. They're not your children, right? Seek counseling for yourself. A lot of time as us as wives, want, but no, you're not supposed to take him. You understand? I'll say to them, seek counseling for yourself, because I personally have a way when I reach out to men, they respond. You understand? So I said, why not just set the session for yourself? Because either way, I'm going to want to hear your story without him being there. So, or her being there, and let me not just say him or her, because a lot of men are being abused in relationships, right? So I'll say, seek the counseling for yourself first. And then as a therapist, I will see how I can reach out to the husband. The truth is, I have had success rates where that is concerned. But certainly if it is that you're in it, person is not at all, you have tried to go, therapists have tried to reach out to them and then say, no, why should you sit and take abuse? That's not God's intention. That God did not, that's not a divine design at all. You understand? And that is where I think the church, that's why I say the church has gone wrong there, because they have allowed it and said, pray about it. No, say your husband a beat you. Some of them are pastor and bishop too. And they tell you to, go and pray about it, because they don't know how to deal with it though. That's what I feel. But I would say, no, you shouldn't sit in an abusive relationship that is consistently abusive. As a matter of fact, the first time abuse happened, a third party intervention, somebody else must know, because a lot of the time the perpetrator will not do it again if he knows that somebody else knows. So don't be silent about it.
Yeah.
Talk about it.
Now, I love that you just said, Dr. Dunbar, and I love how Steffon was careful to distinguish between, is it just like things are
This
nice, right?
discomfort,
Yeah,
right?
because it's not gonna nice, as I
No,
touched on, it won't be
right.
nice 24/7.
No,
I
no.
remember a friend of mine told me that she looked at her husband one day and she said, "Babe, are you always in love with me?" And he was like, "Yeah." And she was like, "Tell me the truth." You can't tell me the truth. And he said, "No." And she's like, "Yes." Because there is a love and then there's a feeling of being in love. And sometimes,
Like I said, there were times I wanted to be single. Yeah, not for a while, no, thank God. But there were days, right? So yeah, talk truth and shame the devil.
come on, somebody. Noran,
Amen.
because we have so much question, I'm coming
Mhm.
down to another question
Go,
for you,
sure.
right? This is a very interesting one, panelists. Other than joint NHT benefits,
Sorry.
what are the advantages of being married? Noran, take it away.
If you ask that question, it might suggest that you don't see anything beyond personal benefit.
Mm,
And if that's how you think, it's fine. You shouldn't be married. Because if you're looking at marriage as a business, which some people do, and they look at a contract, because there is a contractual element to it. But if you cannot find something to answer that question other than NHT benefits, it means that you're probably not looking at love the way we might look at love. You're looking at benefit, you're looking at improvement of life, but you're not looking at love. I understand the question because I've had it asked in a group setting before that other than, let's say, other than I love God and Doc and I getting married, other than love, what else does a man benefit? And not many people could answer it. Well, it's a wife. I say, okay, what else? Then say married, okay, what else? It's not an easy question to answer, but it does show you how you frame love, relationship, interaction, future, legacy, all that stuff. Because if you're thinking about getting married, to me, that's where your head should be going.
Exactly.
Because you can be together forever and not be married. The fact that you want to get married suggests that you want an evolution to level 2. Because you can be common law for the rest of your life and be fine. So why do you need to get married?
Yeah, but you're thinking further, future man, legacy and all of those.
You can have legacy
In the
But again, it shows that we have, as we said, it's been marketed in this way that this is the be all end all. This validates that you are a worthy human being. And that's a problem.
we market marriage as like an indicator of success.
It's validation.
Yeah.
It shows that I'm a good person.
A successful marriage.
Not being married.
Somebody said, "Girl, married me."
I love how you qualify
In that life.
Yes.
I don't know, but suppose you're married, I'm still cheating on you every day. Every day.
What are you?
That's my life, though. So we put more emphasis in the label,
In the marriedness.
than
The marriage itself.
That's the efficiency of the
Efficiency of the marriage and what the union itself entails, the quality of life.
You know, there are many guys who get married because they don't want to be the bad guy,
Yes.
or because they don't want to lose the girl.
Especially after the 5-year mark and the what are we?
In 5 years, I don't want another man to be enjoying this woman who I love. She said, "Listen, hey, if we're not doing that, then I'm gonna go." So you do it. It's a problem because then you're chasing the person and not the institution.
Only because the time is running and we have so many juicy things to still talk about, right? I'm going to jump over to Steffon with one out of the world question now, Steffon. Somebody asked in the box, should another woman willingly enter into a relationship with a man even knowing he has a wife? Take it away, Dr. Campbell.
Why are you asking me that? The answer is no. Why go like this?
So I feel like I set up.
Yeah, like it's no, but I mean that doesn't stop people from trying it, especially if people oftentimes, want what they can't have or see someone else being happy, so they feel like they need to access that happiness wholesale without putting the work into it and all. But the answer is no. Simple, plain and simple.
So I want to insert a but though, Steffon, because you started us off tonight talking about the different arrangements which are possible outside of monogamy. So how can you be so quick to say no?
So the way the question is framed is as if it's behind the back and
Exactly.
and it's
That's what I'm driving at here.
So if it's about the openness, you have open polygamous relationships now, you have polyamorous relationships. how people decide to whatever union people decide to enter into, it's up to them. But the markers should be honesty, openness, and willingness without coercion. So you're not doing this for the other person, right? What are you getting out of it? Because if it is that you are not being satisfied sexually, emotionally, all the other ways, but you're doing this for the other person, if and when it doesn't work out, then you start blaming the other person. You see, I was doing this for you, and you still do this to me and do that and the other. So if it is that the individual is entering into the union and all parties are open and aware of it, then that is something else. But the way the question is framed implies something
Backdoor.
completely different, and that can only lead to hurt and disaster.
Banduloism. Thank you, Steffon. Another question here, which I'm going to jump to Dr. Dunbar first with this one. My wife says she's turned off from me sometimes because I didn't support her much mentally when she was pregnant and while recovering. We are approaching year five in our marriage, and this happened in year 2. Whenever there is an issue, that's normally the response. How do we recover from this experience? And I'd love to hear all the voices as quick as we can, Doc.
Okay, then. So what he has to understand is that she has not healed from that. And it's a wound that has been created that has not been properly dressed because he wasn't paying attention to the wound. And so the wound first, well, she's still there. She still give him sex. She still look after all the other things, but she doesn't feel safe with him because he wasn't there in that space and time for her. So the healing can still start the healing. So it has to be dealt with. It's year 5. You have jumped past it. My husband has a way of saying it that I can't say on this platform, but you have passed it, but she has not passed it. And so you have to go back there with her and have an open and honest discussion and make the sincere apologies. Listen to her with your heart, where you will hear intent. Do not just listen with your ear, or not only your content, because when you hear content, it's nagging. But listen with your heart to hear her hurts.
Excellent.
And then you will know how to respond to her. The healing can begin with the dressing of the wound begins. And if you need a third-party intervention, that's what you need, so that you can hear it clearly and that you can get the response. And then the intervention can begin right there.
Proper. 5 stars. We'll recommend Dr. Dunbar.
Absolutely.
Noran, what's
Ask yourself first, is she right? Ask yourself if her accusations are correct, as in look within yourself and see if maybe she was right. If you don't think she's right, defend the position and say, okay, what was I doing that you didn't see as support? Which is then we're back to Dunbar's honest conversation. But as a man, let me tell you, you see the way that started, that stays with us for life. When your wife or your woman or your girl looks at you and say, you're turned off from me, we don't unhear that. It is here forever. Not because we're thinking about if you're looking at somebody else. But right away, we're hearing, you're not enough for me to even stay interested in you, and you're my husband. So while you're having an honest conversation, talk about that too, and say, hey, listen, I understand you're pregnant, you had a child, you were recovering, it's a lot on you, but I'm here too. And what you said makes me feel like, well, what am I? I'm basically just waiting to hear that you might not want me one day. And as a man, we want to be wanted. We need to be needed, but we want to be wanted, desired, just like how you want to be desired. So have the conversation about, tell me what I did that you felt was unsupportive. Please recognize what you said is hurting me, because how do I ever know that you're being truthful with how you approach me?
One of the things you have to know, let me just insert this. A woman talks about her feeling, not necessarily factual. How she's saying that is how she's feeling now. But that may not be. So she said, I don't love you anymore. What she's actually saying is, I don't feel like I love you anymore, because we really do talk out of our feelings. We really run on emotion.
But if it comes up every time there's an issue, that's repetition.
Yes, but still women talk out of their feelings. If you understand the sexes, then you understand really and truly how it goes. So yes, it's impacting on you, and it's going to take some undoing that you might never forget it. But I'm sure that with time, just like our wound can heal, that wound can heal, her wound can heal. Right? So there's hope.
I'm going to jump to Steffon in a second, but I also want to say that sometimes this is what kind of creates breakdowns too, because the timing of how the man, for example, is amplifying the fact that you cut me too. can also make the woman feel like her situation.
Trivialized.
So I would say, look here, it's not like it's a long-standing issue. Go to the therapist.
Yeah.
Because you see the ways in which we defend as human beings
Yes.
can further shut down
Oh, yes,
communication.
absolutely.
Human need, I want to protect because I feel like you're cutting me.
Right.
But sometimes the way we defend can also be aggressive.
True.
Dr. Campbell.
Man, this is one of those things that I had to learn in real time, knowing that the hurt that you cause and your wife or your spouse expressing that hurt, even if you've moved on from it, it is unfair to assume that the person should also move on at that pace. And I use the analogy of you step on somebody's toe, you don't understand how that step, so you can't say hush or sorry or why you're still happy about that, but it hurt and you caused some hurt and you caused some harm. So you really need to honor that. And yes, the notion of getting defensive, that's something I had to understand is not helpful. Gottman, the psychologist, talks about the four horsemen of relationship breakdown, and defensiveness is one of those things. And the fact that the woman is still expressing her hurt is a sign that she is prepared to do the work to get things to change, but she doesn't know how, and it implies that you all need to do that work together. She did not approach it with contempt, which is one of the leading indicators of divorce or relationship breakdown. She's saying she's turned off when she thinks about it, when she gets that sensation, and in that moment, it's about talking about like how does that feeling manifest? What do you feel when you say turned off? What do you mean? Or when you say I wasn't supporting you mentally, how could I not repeat that? Right. And quite frankly, is this something that you believe that we can work through or get over? Or is it something that every time it comes up, we're going to have to sit and talk through it? Because it's trauma and it's hurt. And you can't discredit that and you can't discount that. And I've learned as a man that oftentimes we try to get the solutions automatically. And that does a disservice to the feeling, the genuine feeling that the woman is feeling. And sometimes it's really just about expressing it and having a conversation and not just jump to the solutions. But when you get to the solution, I think it's important as a man to also understand that, boy, you don't have it all. And you just might need some third-party support. And no amount of Googling and YouTube videos is going to help you through it. But the fact that the woman is able to express the feelings or lack thereof means that there is still an opportunity for things to get better.
Yeah.
And life class definitely helps
If
as
you're
well.
right,
Absolutely.
I'm going to say it this way, and I say if you're right, you don't need a defense. If you're wrong, you don't have one. No defense.
Wrong and strong is still wrong.
Several people said they want part two. I feel like, look, I'm in Brasilia, right?
Yeah.
So real quick and in a hurry, there is a way now that panelists that people are reimagining what works for their marriage. So, one time gone, the man's supposed to go out and get the bread, and the wife must stay home and prep it and take care of the family. Now we have different modalities that work for couples. One of the emerging trends recently is living apart together. And it ties in to a question here, and that's why I raised it. The question is, what are your thoughts on either the husband or wife leaving each other to take up a job offer overseas? Dr. Dunbar, popcorn testimony.
So it's not the ideal, because that is not how God intended marriage to be. He said you only go apart for a season. We know what that was for, and then you come back together because of the issue of the lack of self-control, right? Woman their road and man their road, and all of them look good, right? So there is that. But yes, if it is that you have both committed to this, you have talked about it, you understand the ramifications and the repercussions, then we can do it, because what I've been doing is helping couples to still live together and live apart, and to do all of the things that they can do as much as they can with social media, right? So go on a date, make love, all of these things, that way, because the world is changing and it is how you look at it. My husband and I had the opportunity go overseas. But I decided that not going to work for me. You understand? The distance something don't work for me. But I understand that it exists just like I understand that other types and forms of marriage exist. And so if it is that this is your situation and you ask me to assist you in terms of how to go about it, then I'm certainly going to give you some ways in which you can work this through together, because it is what it is. Because if you say, suppose one person is a higher educated or the more financially viable, and it's best for you to go away and work and me to stay here with the children, and we decide on that, it's what we decide to do. You understand? And you can make it work. But there's also a way that if you decide, say, look here now, we're going to tough it work like my husband is saying, here's one banana, we're going to eat it. And I'm glad we made that decision, because we never had both parents, but we were able, because of our commitment, to give all of our children both parents.
And that was important to you.
Some.
Oran and Steffon are coming to the tone on purpose with this question. How long should a woman stay in a relationship with a man waiting for him to propose? Mr. Noran.
Yes, Nora.
Price.
Do not stay a day longer than you want to.
You're on, you know.
They improve.
It's politically correct.
You are waiting for a proposal. Ask yourself, do I really want to be in this relationship? Because if he doesn't propose, do you love him any less? Does everything you've done before or after the proposal suddenly become moot because he didn't propose? Sounds to me like you probably were looking for the wrong thing in this relationship.
Okay, Dr. Campbell, Mr. Dr. Dunbar face and the whole things, but Dr. Campbell, speak at us, please.
What's the question? How long?
Come on, I'll let them know.
That was the question. How long you should stay in a relationship? Listen, I think you're jumping the gun. You sit down waiting on.
Steffon, hold on. Follow-up has
Yes.
come in to save all of us. Or waiting for him to at least go to premarital counseling. I think that is very much the same animal.
Same animal.
Listen, if you sit and waiting for premarital or proposal and you never had a conversation of what are your views on marriage and all of these things, then you're setting the man up and you also yourself up for failure. But there's a lot about some women enter an intimate relationship with the assumption that it has to lead to marriage, right? And you do all of the things that the wife's supposed to do. And then when the man don't propose, then you say, how dare he not? Right? No, you need to have this conversation. What is it? What are your views on marriage? Is anybody in your family married? Do you even know what marriage is? No.
Right.
And then we can have and then you all can have
Suppose they have had the conversation. This is me
right.
playing. Okay.
Yes.
They have discussed it and there is agreement. Say, yeah, man, marriage a good something, man. Before we want it. And then 3.5 more years elapsed thereafter.
Yes.
But again, this is why communication is important. What is the man views on money? Does he feel like he needs to get to a certain point in his life before he feels like he's doing your life justice, right? Because it could be that he's ready for marriage, but financially he feels like he would not be able to do what he thinks he should do as a man. And these are conversations that need to happen. But if all of those things are in place, the man have money, this, that, and all the talk about marriage and all of these things, and you find it dragging on too long, as Noran said, leave, don't spend that, leave. If it is so important to you and you feel like everything is in place, then it just might be that the man does not see you as a wife. Like that, but don't stay and don't stay and what's
What about listen.
Marriageable. They like it, but what you said, right? In the comments, said something which I think will tie into what Noran is coming with. First, to say, what a woman in the comments said, why does he need 2 years to decide? And I feel like that's the way it's framed by many of my gender to say, yeah, we have to decide if we're marriageable, as opposed to perhaps, as some of you are saying, maybe other consideration. Take it, Noran.
Very harsh statement, but it's a realistic statement. For many men, we will do what we want if we want to do it. The fact that we haven't
Means something.
means we probably don't want to do it.
Are we not ready?
Doesn't mean we want to lose you. Doesn't mean we're not saying that you're not worthy. But the fact is, if a man really wants to marry a woman, the decision is more simple than we might think. No, no. Right now, Mr. Hatfield, he didn't say my marriage. If he still wants to work a couple years and hasn't, it's because it has not come to him that, yeah, this is what I want to do right now. And it doesn't mean that you are not worthy of being married, but recognize this is how a man might think.
Some of the things that Dr. Steffon said.
Just like that. But the other thing is, having a conversation about marriage with your man is not simply as having a conversation about marrying you. So we're asking if you want to get married. So would you marry me? Because you might get a very different answer.
You and for Noran, because we have to count it tonight. Shoot, proposed in Campbell. What are
What's I didn't hear that. What's that?
one propose?
The woman could do anything that she wants. If she if the
Like a
woman feels like
politician.
she should, if the woman wants to propose, the onus is on the man to accept or not. Just like if the man wants to propose, the onus is on the woman to accept or not. If the woman feels like she should propose and it's happening more and more, go right ahead. The world is your playground, right? I mean, we can have a discussion about traditionally who should be the one proposing and all of those things. I know for as a man, I would have felt very, very strange if my wife had gone down on her knees and said, "Will you marry me?" That is for me. I would have felt strange because, as Lauren said, if the man wants to do it, he will, and that was something that I looked forward to. That's something that I wanted to do. I wanted to show, right? And so I would have felt deprived of that opportunity to show it, right? And prove to myself and her that this is something that I actually want, right?
Stefan
Versus
said be great. Pretty much he said, women, if you want to propose, be great, right? Noran, where do you want to answer?
I don't want her to propose to me. I would like to propose, honestly. And how many relationships can survive a rejected proposal? A woman might say yes, not to embarrass me, because, whatever. If the man's face is not, oh, yes, sure, honey, you can tell if he's going, this is a little weird. That's going to cause a rift. That's going to cause a problem. My advice, never you propose unless you can at least say 98%, the person will say yes.
In other words, just stick to the traditional stuff. Let the man propose.
Let the man propose. Honestly.
They have said a lot tonight. I'm going to ask our tech team to go ahead and launch our post-class poll, right? So Nora said your mic was going in and out. So turn it off and turn it back on and see if that helps. This has been so juicy and wonderful. I love this conversation. We're going to launch our post-class poll. Please, let's tell we fill them out, right? And also, Carlene's a 5-star panel. Take a bow. Pick up a nice clean self, right? I love life class. So fill out the poll. We'll soon show you the results. But as we're about to wrap, I want to cue us into the fact that next week, Wednesday, at what time, Noran?
6 p.m.
6? What?
6:30.
You're early. 6:30 p.m. is going to be another amazing conversation. We're going to be talking about something very powerful next week. That topic is swipe left on toxic relationships. Finding healthy love, not just social love, in a hookup culture. You cannot afford to not come next week. It's very simple. All right. So for all the new people, thank you for coming to live class. We love you know. We're just getting started. All right. So come back next week and bring the crowd. All right. Now we're going to pull up the poll. Then I'm going to ask our panelists to give us them one takeaway from tonight's convo, especially for people who are either seeking to get married, Noran, or seeking to get married again, right, after divorce. And for those who are married and want to improve the quality of their marriage. Just think about that 1 second while I read our post-class poll results. Tech team, thank you. So we've had 74% of you, well, actually 92% of you have said that your mood has improved either completely or sort of since life class began. We are happy for that. Panelist expertise has given me a better understanding of marriages and other forms of relationships. 99% of you said either yes or sort of, and we love that. I have registered for next week's live. Let me tell you now, 91% of you either do it already or you are going to press the button right now. Very good answers. And finally, I received what I expected from this class. How much people at Noran? 100% of you totally or mostly. And what we probably captured fully here for those who say mostly, we have several other conversations coming up, right? I registered for all seasons, says Daniel Campbell. I love it. Okay, so panelists now, let's go further. Steffon, what is your takeaway for those who want to proceed to marriage, right? Have a healthy, improve the quality of their marriage or get married again?
Communication is key. It might sound stereotypical, but it is so very important. Understanding what it means or what it takes to have an honest and open conversation, even when it's hard, even when it doesn't suit you. That is something that you have to be prepared to do if you want to get married and while you are in the marriage. Another important element is knowing yourself. And when we say knowing yourself, it's understanding yourself in the deepest level, not just the good, the not so good, the things that you're uncomfortable to talk about. Those are things you have to come face to face with. A lot of people are afraid or uncomfortable to sit in silence and just allow their mind to wander or just reflect on the things that you're uncomfortable with. It cannot be understated. It is important for you to understand all of those cracks and crevices in your own person, in your own self. You need to really and truly know yourself deeply and understand yourself before marriage, and especially in marriage, because some of those blind spots can literally have an impact on the other person that you claim to love and you claim you want to get to know and you claim you want a deeper relationship with. So knowing yourself is so very important. And also you have to be willing to seek support. I believe that whether you're married or not, you should have a support system, but especially in a marriage, there must be some form of support. There must be some people that you can lean on in a healthy way, right? Not, I mean, yeah, you're single brethren and then it's good for general conversation. But when it comes to conversations about marriage, you need like-minded people. You need people who've been through it, who can give you sound and relevant advice. And that might, so you have your support system in that informal way, but counseling and therapy, don't feel guilty. Don't shy away from that form of support if you need it in your marriage, because if you're committed to this thing, you should be committed to all of the things that will make it better, beyond making it work, help you to find that joy, help you to find that satisfaction for a long and healthy relationship.
So what I hear you saying, Steffon, is lean on community as well, but in a healthy way.
In a healthy way, absolutely.
Community and communication. Thank you for those two takeaways. Noran, what do you want to leave with the people?
I want to leave with you. Be prepared to be okay with who you are. Figure that out first, and then have the other person figure themselves out as well, and then you match notes. Don't do it because it feels good. Feeling good should always be a part of it, but that's not sustainable, especially in a world like today where there's so many options for people. You can have a relationship with somebody halfway across the world that you can speak to instantly. So if this is what you want to do, make sure you want to do it because you want to do it, not because somebody's pressuring you, not because your ego doesn't want to be shamed every time you go to the family reunion and say, oh, you're not married yet. What do you see? Be careful of the external pressure, because it's not the external is in your relationship, it's you and the other person. So be true to who you are as best as you can, and be prepared to be okay if this is not for you.
Very well said. Dr. Dunbar, talk to us about your thoughts and then that you're planning for the end of May as well, please.
Okay. I think knowing you is the highest height of wisdom. You can't get beyond knowing you into knowing somebody else, especially if you're thinking about that somebody else for marriage. Because like you heard earlier, you must bring something to the marriage and you must know what you bring. Otherwise, you won't know what you're being appreciated for or not, or unappreciated for the lack of. So I think knowing you is one thing. I think you should also know and understand that marriage is not self-sustainable. It takes two, right? Two people who are committed in this relationship to sustain the relationship. Everything needs sustenance and maintenance in life. You're not meant to just survive a marriage. You're meant to thrive in a marriage. And that does not mean happiness all the time, as we heard earlier. It means that you understand that what you two together put in is what will give you the greatest joy going through it. Right? So it's important to understand that. So it's not self-sustained. You have to put in, you have to make the deposits if you want to make the withdrawals. There's no withdrawals without deposit. And then I think also that you need to understand that marriage is built to last. It can last. Yes, it can last, but that is dependent upon you, what your expectations are, the understanding of what your partner's expectations are going into the relationship, and the willingness to do what it necessitates to ensure that it lasts. It's a wonderful thing. I can tell you, I am enjoying my marriage qualitatively right now for the last about 20 years now. We still have differences of opinion because we're different. And I don't want my husband to be like me. And I'm sure he doesn't want me to be like him. One of us would be redundant if it is that we were the same. So we understand that our differences are complement to our marriage and not a complication. And we shouldn't make it a complication. We should just work together, towards the common goal, that of having a fruitful, long, healthy marriage for the world to see and want to emulate, because that is what we're doing. We're promoting marriage, honoring.
I love it.
Right?
And you have an event coming up.
And we have an event coming up. And if you want to learn more about sustaining marriage, they really should call the office and register for the gym, especially the MRI, which is the Marriage in Readiness Intelligence.
On somebody.
Right? That scores, right. So what Carla Dunbar Ministries does, a lot of charities. All of our events are charitable. We just had one Saturday that's taking care of our family, father, mother, and son with lupus. And so the next one coming up at the end of May is to build a home for a single mother who is homeless with a set of twins down in Barton's in Clarendon. And so we're having a full day summit. It's at Loverton Summit, where persons will be on the platform speaking. We're asking influencers, doctors, professionals to give us 10 minutes of their time. So while you're giving us your money, writing your checks to us to help us, we're giving you back something, information. So it's edutainment, and we have entertainment as well. And 7 a.m. to midnight on the 28th of May, we give you all the opportunity to clear your bank account and send it over to us so that we can help a mother and son, mother and children, son and daughters, a son and daughter twin, to have a home. Right? So look forward to that. Doing. At Carla Dunbar Ministries on all platforms with information.
It's in the chat. Yes, so please follow along. Good. I just want to say I came to class today and I feel enriched. I feel inspired. And somebody in the comments said, I think it was Sharma, whose Sharm said that they felt as though it was an in-person class, like the energy, translated even through the Zoom. And we hope at some point soon we can have all of us, 199 of us, sitting in the room. And just the energy just flows throughout the entire day. So let's pray about it. Yes. And let's keep, let's keep hope alive that we'll be able to do that very soon. So until next week, I want to say thanks to Noran, to Carla, and to Steffon for your time, for your wisdom, for your vulnerability, for your transparency, for your wisdom, and for your courage to share your stories. Thank you, everybody. And until next time, all of you, our Life Class family, thank you so much for coming, and come next week early. All right. Until then, take care of your good selves and walk good. Take care, Steffon. I can still hear us.